Sometimes, while working with SQL, in order to perform data manipulation on tables, we kind of want to avoid writing some big queries over and over again, which becomes a tedious job. Now, the question comes, is there a better way to store these query results in some sort of variables and then perform data manipulations on these variables? Our lives would become much more easier if that scenario was possible. And Pandas is a library in Python which just allows us to do this and much more. So, hey everyone, my name is Akash and welcome to my channel TechPiece, where I talk about Python, machine learning, and software related stuffs. And in today's video, we will see 10 basic SQL operations which we can easily do in Pandas. So, let's get started. Before starting the video, let me quickly walk you through the datasets which we'll be using as an example. The first dataset is student marks, where we will store the marks of various students in subjects like maths, science and English, and along with the marks we will also store their class and roll number, and here the class and roll number will act as the primary key. The second data set which we'll be using would be student details. Let me write it down and run it. And this data set will contain the personal information of individual students like their name, class, roll number, gender, blood group and phone number. Here also we can access the unique records by using class and roll number as the primary key. I will be using Postgres SQL's pgadmin tool to show how it gets executed on the SQL side, and you can also use any other tool like MySQL, Oracle SQL, SQL Server, etc. And these commands are simple and they can run on any of them. And to execute the pandas, I will use Jupyter Notebook, which is one of the most popular Python tools to work with. Also, the CSV file and the SQL statements present in this video, I will add them in the description, and I will also add this Jupyter Notebook as well, and make sure that you check that out. Let's start with the most basic SQL operation that is done, which is selecting and displaying the data. Here it is already done using the select star commands, and we can also include specific columns like name and roll number, and it will return now only 2 rows. Yeah, so it is a very simple command, and now I'm going to replicate the same operation using pandas. So in here the first step would be that I'm going to import the pandas library. So I will write import pandas as pd, and here the pd is an alias, that is basically the short form, so that we don't have to write pandas again. And this pandas has a function which is read csv, and this basically reads the comma separated files, and for simplicity we will be reading the data from csv rather than the connection from database. So I'm gonna write student details equals pd dot read csv student details dot csv. Yep, and if we just print this variable which is student details, we will see our data frame. This was the same data frame which was introduced in SQL, and in here we pass the location of the file. So here the file is in the same directory, and if it wasn't, then we had to pass the full location of the file. And let's do it for the same for student marks. Student marks equals pt.read csv student marks. And there we go. Now we have both the data sets in two variables. In SQL we had to write one long query, but now in order to display we just need to print these variables and we will get our data frame. So that's the power of pandas. And now we can see the select all operation, and in order to see the individual columns in here we just need to point them out. So we can do that by okay, class what am I doing? Okay, yeah, we can basically select the data here in the form of this like something like 2D array, and it will give the two columns only. So basically that's how we do reading of our data frame and displaying specific columns in the pandas. Using aggregate functions. So in SQL we use aggregate functions to work on the column in order to find values like minimum value, the maximum value, the mean value, etc. So let us see an example of this. So here in the student marks table, let us check what is the maximum marks in the subject maths. So here we will call an aggregate function which is max on the column which is maths. And before running this query we can see the output should be 89 because no value is bigger than 89. So let's run this, and there we go, we got 89 as an output. So the maximum marks in maths subject is 89. So let us now try to replicate this same operation using pandas. So first here we will be needing student marks, this data set, and now out of this we need maths column only. So we will select maths column. One thing to keep in mind, if we are selecting one column we will pass 1D array, and if we will be selecting two columns we can pass 2D array. So if I then run this, you can see we got the values of the maths column only, and now on this we can perform some aggregate function operations. So if I write dot max, it will now return the 89 marks. You can see there is 89 marks. If I call min, it will return the lowest mark which was 22. Yep, in maths the lowest mark was 22. And if I write the mean, which will bring us the average of all the marks, which is 58.5. So that's how we use aggregate function in pandas. Order by clause. Order by clause is generally used to sort the values in ascending or descending order. Let's see an example of this by sorting names in ascending order. Our query will become select star from student details, order by column name which is name, and when we execute this all our values have been sorted in ascending order. And for descending order we just need to add an extra keyword which is DESC, and it will do the job for us. So if we run this, now it has been sorted in descending order. In pandas, there is a function which is sort values, which just does what group by does in SQL. So let me just demonstrate. So first we need to see the data frame, student details. If we run this, we can see this data frame, and now we need to call the dot sort values function, and in this the parameter would be on the basis of which column we are sorting, so we will be using name column. And it also needs an additional parameter which is the order, so ascending order equals true. And once we execute this, we can see that our data frame is now sorted in ascending order. And in pandas, for descending order, all we need to do is just put the value of ascending equals false, and it will do a descending order sorting. Yep, from V it starts and A it ends. So that's how we sort the values in the pandas data frames. Group by operation. So group by clause in SQL helps us to arrange very similar data into groups with the help of some function. For example, let us now count the number of students in different classes. So while seeing the data set, we can say that there are basically 4 students of class 7 and there are 2 students for class 8. And our SQL query to perform this operation will be select class and count of all the records from student details, and we will group this by class. And when we execute this, we will find that there are indeed 4 students from class 7 and there are 2 students from class 8. Now to perform this operation using pandas, let me just first print the data frame again. So student details, and now we need to group by class. So dot group by, this function basically performs the same thing which group by does in the SQL, and we will group this by class. And out of the class, the roll number will be distinct, so we kind of want to count on the basis of roll number. So roll number, and we need to perform a count operation on it, so count. So what this statement tells us is we want our data frame to group it by classes, and in each class there would be unique roll numbers, so we want to count those roll numbers for different classes. And when we run this, we will see the output which we got using the SQL. That is, for class 7th we have 4 students and for class 8th we have 2 students. So that's how we can perform the group by operation using the pandas. In and not in operator. In SQL, in operator allows us to specify multiple values in a column. For example, let us now select the rows where students only having a blood group of A or B are considered. So our query will become select star from student details where blood group in A, B. And when we run this query, we will only see the students where the blood group is A or B. And if we want a not in operator, we just add a not here. So where our blood group is not in A or B, and if we execute this, we will see the blood group of O, A, B and O, which are not actually A or B. Now let us do the same using the pandas. So in pandas we have a function which is isIn, which basically works on a column, and let me demonstrate it for you. So student details, first let us just print the data frame, and in this we want to consider student details of blood group. And now I'm going to use the isIn function dot isIn, and this function basically takes an array of values, and our values are A and B, and when we run this we will see only our blood group of A and B. And if we want not in operator, so all we need to do is add a negation sign here. This is basically, it negates everything, it is basically opposite of everything we have just filtered. So if we run this negation operator using isIn, it will give us a not in query. So that's how we use isIn and not in pandas. Joins. The join clause is used to combine data from two or more tables based on a common column between them. Let us take the same example of student details and student marks and combine all the details and academic marks of the students together. Our query will become select star from student details A, join student marks B on A dot class equals B dot class and A dot roll number equals B dot roll number. And if we execute this, we will see all our personal information as well as the academic details are now present together. That's how we basically perform a join operation in SQL. Now let us see how we can do the same using pandas. So in pandas we have a merge function which allows us to join two or more data frames. So I'm going to execute this by calling pd.merge, and inside this we need to put some parameters. So the first one would be the first data frame, which is student details. The second data frame would be student marks, and we also need to specify how we are joining. So our join is inner, so we will write how equals inner, and we also need to specify on what columns we will be joining. So on equals, the first column is class and the second column is roll number. And if we execute this, yes, we got all our personal details of every student along with their academic marks in the three subjects. So that's how we do joining. And basically this merge command has multiple options, and instead of inner we can also do outer, left, right, etc. So different types of join are also possible here. So if we write outer, so for now there are not any additional rows which we can filter, so it will return the same data frame, but this is the option and we can do it through this way. So that's how we join multiple data frames using the pandas datasets. Creating a new column using the existing ones. Now let us add a new column which will be total in our student marks table, and this column will basically store the added value of science, maths and English. So our query will become select star comma maths plus science and plus English as total. And if we execute this, we will get a new column altogether which is total, and this is basically containing the added values of marks of 3 subjects. And let us now do the same operation using the pandas. So first we need to add a new column in our student marks table, and this is how basically we add a new column. This total will be our new column, and the value of this total will be the added value of marks in 3 subjects. So we can write of maths plus student marks in English plus student marks in science. And if we execute this one again, yes, we will see a new column which is total, and this will contain the sum of marks in 3 subjects. So this is the syntax of how we can basically add a new column from the existing ones. Selecting data conditionally. Sometimes we need to add multiple filters or conditions in order to fetch the rows, and we basically do that with the help of where clause, where the conditions are separated with and or operators. So let us see an example. Suppose I'm going to apply multiple condition here. So I want where my class is 7 and the gender is male, and I want the blood group to be O positive. And if we execute this, we will get only one row, which is Tom. So Tom is basically matching all our 3 conditions. And now let us go and try to do this operation using pandas. So in pandas, we basically need first our data frame, which is student details, and in order to conditionally select our row, we need to basically give it conditions using the brackets. So for now we will be using and operators in middle, so we have 3 conditions, so we will put 3 brackets separated by and operator. Our first condition will be that students basically class is 7, so I'm gonna write of class equal to 7. That is the first condition. The second condition will be our students gender is equal to male, and our third condition will be our students blood group equals O positive. And if we execute this, we will get only one row, which is the Tom. So Tom was basically our filtered student which matched all the conditions, and that's how we basically filter our data frame using multiple conditions using the pandas datasets. Insert and update. Inserting a new row in a table is a simple operation, and this can be done by a simple insert into command. So let us try this query. So basically we will be inserting a new row set at the end of our data frame. So once we execute this query, the execution was successful, and if we check our table again, we will see we have added a new row which is set towards the end of the table. Now let us perform this insert operation in our pandas data frame. So first let us find the length of our rows. So we can find it by making use of dot index, and we basically want to insert at the end. So we want to basically insert at this location, which is the 6th. So what we will do is we will manually add the new row in the 6th location of our data frame. So the command to do that will be student details dot lock of the 6th value. So instead of this we can write the length of already existing data frame, and this will be equal to the new row. So I will pass a list of values, and this will be this row, and if we just specify this, and once we execute this, the execution was successful. Now let us check our data frame again, and if we run this, then we can see the new row, which is Seth, has been inserted in our data frame. So this is the format to insert a new row. We basically want to go to the last location and add our details manually by passing a list of the values. So that's the insert operation using the pandas data frames. Now the next part is the update part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to update the name of the newly added row. So the row 7, which is Seth, I'm going to update this name Seth to the full name, which is Seth Andrews. So this can be done by using update command. So our query will be update student details, and we will set the name Seth Andrews wherever the class is 7 and the roll number is 38. So we are making sure that we update only one row, and once we execute this query, we will see the execution was successful. And if we run our student details table again, we will see our name Seth, and Seth has been changed to Seth Andrews. So that's how we update a row in the SQL. Now in pandas we can do the same thing by passing the condition in this data frame dot log. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pass in two conditions, and this will be separated by AND operator, and after this I'm going to put like which part we will be changing. So we will be changing the name, and this will be equal to our new name, which is Seth Andrews. And what the conditions will be, the first condition is that our class will be 7. So I'm just gonna write class equal to 7, and the second condition will be our roll number will be equal to 38. And if we execute this, this will be executed successfully, and after that if we print our data frame, we will see that the new name or the full name of Seth will be changed to Seth Andrews. So that's how we can update a particular row in pandas. Delete operation. So our last operation is delete. So let us now delete the new row which we have recently created, which is the Seth Andrews row. So in SQL it can be done by using the delete keyword followed by some certain conditions. So here our SQL will be, we will delete the data from student details wherever the class is 7 and roll number is 38. So in this case it should only delete our last row, which is the Seth Andrews. So If we execute this query, the query execution was successful. And if we see our student details table again, so we will find that this row which we recently created is now absent. So that's how we delete a row in SQL. In pandas, we can basically drop a particular row by making the use of drop function. So I'm just gonna call dot drop, and this function basically drops on the basis of index or on the basis of the columns. So for this index, we want to basically give that index which we want to drop. So our index will be calculated on the basis of the row, and that row in particular will be calculated on the basis of certain conditions. So first let us calculate the row. Our row will be student details of certain conditions. So our conditions would be that student class should be 7 and student roll number should be 38. So if we just give it this condition, it will filter out only one row, and out of this one row we want the index. So I'm going to write dot index dot index, and we also want that this happens within the data frame, so that we don't want to create another variable to store it. So I'm going to write dot in place equal to true, and if we run this, it will be executed successfully. And if we just print our variable, we will see that Seth Andrews name is missing. So what we did here is we basically dropped on the basis of index. But how did we choose our index? We chose our index on the basis of certain rows, and those rows were chosen on the basis of certain conditions, and that's what we did while dropping our particular row. So those were the 10 basic SQL operations which we can do using pandas, and there is much more. Also folks, please practice it if you are already into Python, and if someone new is watching, then pandas is a great way you can start data manipulation and data visualization. So that's it folks on this video, and I'll be posting much more stuffs about Python, data science and machine learning. Also feel free to subscribe to this channel to hack the YouTube algorithm such that YouTube recommends you similar educational videos. So thank you folks, and see you in the next video.